Welcome back, everybody. It's Wang and Chang with another Minecraft episode. Before that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Our statistics show that 100% of you aren't subscribed. So before you do that, please make sure to do that. And before we begin this episode, here's a message from our sponsors.
Whoa! Does sound familiar? Well, it should be. You've probably heard something similar to this, more likely than not, but regardless, you recognize it. But isn't it interesting that no matter how much you've been on the internet, you'll still come across it in some shape or form?
Everyone has come across some form of media, from news broadcasts to TV shows to online articles on your phone. It's everywhere and it's always with you in one shape or form, just like that book next to you, or that website you have saved somewhere, or even this documentary you're watching.
Wait, no, you're breaking the fourth wall, Derek. You can't be doing
The media can entertain and educate us. It's a powerful tool, but as a result, it plays a big part in what we, as Americans, know and how we see the world.
But it wasn't always this way. Social media and technology have gone through many changes to be where it is today. The physical spread of information, being able with face-to-face conversations, newspapers, articles, and even books. Remember when we used the services and those chunky books in your English classrooms? But as time went on, technology became more advanced, eventually leading to the technological marvels we see today.
We can now spread information with phone calls, radio stations, social media, and even cultural forms of imitation, or as we call it, memes. Gotcha, but realistically, there are so many forms of different technology, don't we see it everywhere? In the 21st century, we are now a technologically dependent society, so much so that most people couldn't go a day without their phone or laptop. We surveyed 169 teenagers at random in our school and found that only 47% said they couldn't go a day without it. 90% of those same 169 surveyed teenagers told us that they use social media for at least 30 minutes a day, and many use it more than 2 hours a day.
We're connected all the time, no matter where you are. But you might think that this only applies to teenagers who are glued to their phones 24/7, but surprisingly, many adults use various forms of media.
I am Travis Dalton. I am the Adobe Video and Visual Design teacher here at Green Level High School. I also work at WRAL TV as a TV news editor.
So, as you mentioned that you are a video editor, how essential is, I guess, the news in your opinion? Like, what is its purpose?
I think it is essential that we know what's going on around us. We want to know all the happenings of both local and global events so that we're well informed and that we can make accountable decisions on a personal basis and even contribute to the society as a whole on a larger basis.
Times have changed, and the technology we use to communicate reflects that. In trend with the past few decades, more people are relying on technology for communication, entertainment, and even information. But to what extent might all of those uses be helpful?
Well, in some ways, it's not helpful. You might think in all the interconnectedness of the internet, where we often encounter those with different opinions, we'd be more accepting of others' viewpoints. However, the exact opposite is true in some cases. In a study from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, they found that exposure to opposing views on social media can increase political polarization and aggression online. Despite the limitations of their study being in one experimental scenario, it could have important implications to how we act online when we're behind a different identity.
But surprisingly, social media users are very aware of these opinions.
I think national news has become such a ratings race that it's less about informing the public than it should be. Just trying to fill a 24-hour news cycle that you're filled with so many opinion shows where you have pundits and panelists where it becomes less and less talking about what's happening and how everyone feels about what's happening. Which there is time and place for that, but not necessarily 24-hour news of it. And then on the Twitter side of it, kind of coming back to that, you may lose some of that interaction of the face-to-face stuff where someone may put out a tweet headline, and then if the comments are open, we just know if you don't agree with it, then they're the worst person in the world, or if you do agree with it, then they're the savior. It opens up probably an unhealthy dialogue.
In the survey we conducted, we found that nearly 77 of 169 responses were about saying something offensive online. These responses indicate a large percent of people willing to express anger to push their opinion onto others or argue against others. But technology isn't just a place for debates and Twitter forums, but it's also a place to get information.
Hello, my name is Mr. Simmons, Coach Simmons, Brandon Simmons, and I am a teacher here at Green Level High School. I'm also an assistant football coach and track and field coach. For me at least, and I can only speak for myself, major news outlets are very important, but social media, particularly Twitter, my opinion is the quickest way to spread information, good, bad, or indifferent. But through social media, through Twitter, major news outlets are able to reach borders that they previously just didn't have the opportunity to reach. But social media has given us that opportunity to learn more about what's happening around us.
But while 80% of teenagers from our survey got their information from social media, it's one of the least trustworthy places you can find. Many say that seeing is believing, but if you've been on the internet, you should know not to believe everything you see. The internet can be a place for politically charged opinions, but it can also create sources of alternative facts. And that's a rule even adults know.
And mentioning that you did enjoy face-to-face communication.
Absolutely.
Is there any time where you feel like there might be misinformation or you don't trust something that you see on the internet?
Yes, all the time. And again, I can only speak from my experience. Part of the reason why I prefer face-to-face conversations or interaction is because I think a lot of imported, emotion is lost through technology. Okay, for example, if you're communicating with a person face-to-face, you will be able to, in my opinion, read that person more often than not. Send the same message through a text message, more often than not, that emotion might be removed.
But why is it like that?
There is no evidence that I can see that a pandemic exists. There is no evidence that SARS-CoV-2 has been purified and is unequivocally.
Tell me that you believe that human beings landed on the moon. I'm with Steph and AI on this one. I knew it. I'm with them on this one. Okay, if you're gonna say you've seen the footage. Let me tell you this. There's footage. I see a lot of footage.
In our research, we found that up to 27% of statistics provided online are false. Did you catch that? Well, that was a lie. It's that easy to mislead people online. In some extreme cases, rabbit holes of misinformation can even lead to conspiracies. I'm sure you've heard of the flat earth theory, right? Well, what about the earth is a donut? Another way the media has potential to change us is our impression of others. Almost everyone from our survey said that his or her initial impression and judgment of a person were affected by what they see online. Most people said that what others posted made them feel jealous, sometimes came off as rude, and sometimes even admitted to making assumptions about others based on what they saw online. A few also acknowledged that although social media is an easy way to get an impression of someone, it might not necessarily represent their true identity in real life. Not only the internet and social media can change our perspective on things, but also the shows, movies, and entertainment we watch that can change how we see things. The way we perceive others online reflects and affects how we think about them in real life.
One-dimensional characters of people can encourage others to create stereotypes of them in their heads. For example, many people see Arabs in Hollywood as villains or other stereotypical roles.
When we think of Arabs, what do we see? What images come to mind? Arabs are the most maligned group in the history of Hollywood. They're portrayed basically as subhuman.
Where's the mother?
We know the mythology. the mythology, namely Hollywood's images of Arabs.
In this way, stereotypes can occur when we cast people into roles that others might take too literally. Media, as we know it today, is focused on grabbing our attention. Instagram feeds are filled with short videos, TikToks with clips just a click away, and YouTube videos right in front of us. This dopamine-driven excitement tends to make us look one way without seeing the full story.
I think moving on to a lighter topic and referring back to your profession at Green Level as, a media teacher, how essential is, let's say visual aspects, like the first glance of something? How do you think there's a correlation between looking at a poster and reading more about it versus just reading a headline and wanting to read more about it, like visual keys and whatnot?
Absolutely, and then that's something that kind of ties journalism and graphic design together, where if you write a good headline or put it on a nice graphic, something that's catchy, then that's going to get people to, if they're watching the news, to stop and pay attention, or if they're scrolling through Twitter, to essentially get that click. Now that comes back to that responsibility of not having misleading headlines just to get the clicks. It's essentially clickbait for news. We don't want that. I think it is super important. If you have great graphics or representation to tell your story, then it can really bolster it. But it all comes back to that responsibility of using it in the appropriate manner.
But because the internet spreads information fast, what if we use that for good? We can use it for educational purposes to spread awareness and connect with our community. Just look at our current pandemic. Our reliance on Zoom and Google Meets is undeniable, and Google Classroom is just educational social media at this rate. Teachers are suddenly using social media to contact students and athletes. Our football coach here at Green Level encourages athletes to have a presence on social media.
As far as recruiting goes, so I also handle recruiting here at Green Level High School, particularly football. And what I do know for a fact is that college coaches, they spend more time on Twitter than any place else. So the push here, for example, is to make sure that our student athletes, regardless of sports, are aware of that.
The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was seen and done everywhere at its peak.
I'm going to challenge 3 more people. Elon Musk, Ryan C.
The challenge spread like wildfire from its original video to become a worldwide phenomenon, with more than 17 million participating and eventually amounting to a whopping 115 million raised by the ALS Association. That increased the annual funding for research worldwide by around 187%. Although publicity is only part of the challenge, ALS, a little-known disease, was able to gain the attention of millions in just a few months.
Similarly, news coverage of different world movements, including Black Lives Matter, the Asian American movement, and the Israel-Palestine conflict, has helped inform the nation and coordinate rallies in support. When someone goes through an injustice, there's going to be someone else to bring attention to those injustices. If there's a trend for charity, there's going to be people who are going to advocate for it. Regarding what we said about misinformation earlier, media itself isn't inherently the cause of it, it just makes it easier. Many trustworthy news sources put effort and research into their coverage to make it as objective as possible.
See news stories where they might only cover one perspective or isn't up to that specific standard that you might expect from a news station?
I can specifically speak for WRL. I know seeing what comes in and what we put out, that we do, I'd say, an excellent job of making sure all the information is presented factually and accurate and fair. I know some people like to think that you only cover one side of the story, but I know personally just seeing the information that comes in and the product we put out, that it is something that is fair and has accurately represented the story.
With everything we do with it, this technology interconnects us in a way that hasn't ever been possible in the past.
I think our last question would be, what do you think the purpose, the actual general purpose of social media? Is it for, doing good, spreading information, entertainment?
To each his own. I have a number of different friends, and including myself, that use social media for a variety of different reasons. Some use them for entertainment purposes. Some use it for major news. Others use it to push out relevant or irrelevant information. It really just boils down to preference. Me personally, I think that social media should be used to spread, information, credible information, and to further develop your overall presence as a program, as a school, as a business, as a brand.
What do you think the purpose of social media is?
I think social media at its purest form is a great way to connect and bring people together with common interests. Now, we also know that it's probably very rarely used at its purest form and can be an avenue for sinister people to basically have their thoughts out there in the world. But I think it does ultimately more good than harm, because it can bring a lot of people together. It's opened up a ton of opportunities for a lot of people, but it's something that you have to be consciously aware when you're using it, not just blindly taking it at face value. Understand that there can be negatives to it while enjoying the good that it does also provide.
As you can see, the media is a super versatile tool with the power to influence millions of people. It's a helpful tool for quick communication, to help spread information and to entertain many, but be wary. What's important is that we convey accurate information. We have to be careful about how we use media, because if we're not, we might spread more negatives than positives. Just like what we copy and paste on Twitter, what we choose to cut out and show to others is up to us.